hungry predator is eating its way through Atlantic ecosystems, all the way from the Carolinas to Brazil. The red lionfish. And now, lionfish are invading the Mediterranean Sea through the Suez Canal. But there's someone standing in their way. Dr. Aylin Ulman came from Turkey to the New World in the midst of a pandemic to save her own. She's with Fogg, master lionfish hunter and scientist. Ali ElHage, inventor and entrepreneur. And scientist and hunter, Dr. Holden Harris. Aylin came to the Florida Keys to learn from the best how to fight the deadly invasion. She learned quickly how people like Ali, Alex, and Holden volunteer their time, money, and talents to study and control lionfish populations. Together, this group represents the gold standard in the battle to keep lionfish from taking over.
Always been obsessed with the ocean. It's like my serenity, everything that kind of grounds me. My father was also addicted to the sea. So from a little girl, we would go on vacations to the Caribbean or to the Mediterranean, and I'd always go snorkeling with my dad, and he'd show me what everything is. Last time I came to the Florida Keys, I was maybe 8 years old or 7 years old, and my father stops the car and jumps into the ocean and comes back with 4 lobsters in his Speedo. And he's like, okay, I have lunch now. And I was like, I want McDonald's. You know, like, whose father does that? So he was a swimmer, he was a free diver, he was a scuba diver, he was a Navy diver. So he was probably in that business for about 10 years, but it was so dangerous back then, obviously. You know, he lost many friends along the way. One time he stumbled upon a shipwreck in the Black Sea. I don't know if it was a recovery dive, but they dove inside the ship and they found this safe. And there are all these printed bills, and my dad thought he was a millionaire, but they were French francs, but they had just changed the currency, so everything was useless. I think I'm just so blessed because I don't know many other 21-year-old girls who would have their father's blessing to travel the world by themselves and to have that support behind them and know that you have that support behind you. I am more comfortable underwater than I am above water. Like, I have actually fallen asleep underwater before with a scuba group and woken myself up snoring, and I'm so comfortable under there, and I miss it. It's such a fun world where you get to be free. You can pretend you're an astronaut. You can do acrobatics. You know, it's like a dream world. Sometimes you can play with magic lights. Like, there's so many possibilities under there.
I wanted to hear Aylin's impression of the people she had come all the way from Turkey to meet, so she could learn about their experiences in the Western Atlantic with the lionfish invasion.
Definitely.
I asked her to describe her new colleagues in just a single sentence, starting with Fogg.
Genius, does everything, so friendly, so helpful, good friend.
In the Western Atlantic, Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean, we've had the chance to be able to monitor that invasion for more than 30 years now, from beginning to end, from when we saw the first lionfish to now we're seeing hundreds of lionfish on certain reef sites. We've been able to see the impacts that they've had on the ecosystem. We've seen declines in certain species. We've seen some species that haven't had any changes that we maybe expected. But we've also seen I guess, community develop around lionfish, whether it be folks who are actually studying them, folks who are wanting to eat them at the restaurants and cook them in the restaurants. People were actually competing against each other to try and collect the most lionfish and be the lionfish king. And these are all folks that I would have never really expected to I guess, interact with. I never expected to be doing work or collaborating with folks in the Mediterranean, but here we are.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool opportunity. It's opened up so many doors.
I think we're just beginning our little.
I think so. Well, the invasion's relatively new in the Mediterranean, even though they've kind of been around for a decade. But the numbers are really starting to explode over there, right?
Yeah, I'd say they exploded probably in southern Turkey around 2017.
Yeah, and a lot of those lionfish that we have in the Western Atlantic or even in the Mediterranean are pretty genetically superior lionfish. So in the Western Atlantic, they got here likely through the aquarium trade. So that lionfish survived being captured from its native range, flown or boated to the United States, survived in someone's pet aquarium, survived in someone's personal aquarium, and then likely got dumped into the water, survived that whole escapade, and then found a mate and caused this entire problem. So those fish that survived that entire onslaught of challenges is the one that all these lionfish that we have now, those are the genetics they have. So I think those superior genetics are certainly contributing to why they're so, I guess, robust. But in the Mediterranean, the mechanism was a little bit different, right, on how they got there.
Yeah, so we have the man-made Suez Canal that kind of joined two seas that should not have been joined. And unfortunately, they're just they're coming through more and more, especially since there was a 2016 expansion of the Suez Canal.
Made it wider?
Yeah, made it wider and deeper.
Yeah, and it opened the doors for not just lionfish, but tons of other non-natives, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'll give you 3 words. Lionfish are bad. So we've talked about all the things that make them so superior, but it's the impacts of the ecosystem that we've realized and maybe haven't realized yet. You know, seeing them eating all those grazers and causing the algae to maybe grow out of control on some of the corals, or potentially eating some of those commercially and recreationally important species of fish, snappers and groupers and whatnot, that you know, can cause a lot of problems to the economy and the ecology.
Agreed, lionfish are bad, but they're also good because they provide so much new opportunities. They give us a new fish to eat in the overfished Mediterranean. They've given us all these great new friendships, all these great collaborations going forward, and all these ideas of new businesses we can even start. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Next up is Dr. Holden Harris.
Another genius, a Clark Kent type, very too intellectual, really a great colleague, and probably one of the best editors for our research papers, because he's really tough. He's really tough. He's been taught really well.
Well, I think we've learned some lessons from how we've gone about this here. And there's been a number of different countries and ways that we've come about this. Can we synthesize some of this lesson into a scientific product that could then help support management decisions?
Your paper was titled Lessons Learned from Western Atlantic Lionfish Invasion to Inform Management in the Mediterranean. What were the main messages of that paper?
First, we learned there's kind of two failed approaches that seem intuitive from the beginning, but again and again didn't work. First of all was developing these bounty programs for lionfish, for offering like cash rewards for lionfish out of the water. What we found is those quickly ran out of money, and that there was also more sustainable ways to develop lionfish removal programs. Another one is a neat program that different places started trying to train native predators to eat lionfish. But what we saw again and again is that trying to train sharks and eels to eat lionfish actually makes them more aggressive to divers. And I've seen this firsthand. We know people who have that they start to become aggressive, and then it actually starts getting harder to hunt lionfish. Some areas you need someone specifically, we're looking out for sharks and eels, and another person hunting the lionfish.
I'm happy with the output. We had a few hurdles, but we got over it. As lionfish know no borders, either do scientists.
I'd like to ask you both a little bit more about your experience meeting each other and getting people from so very different parts of the world together, what it's meant to you personally, professionally, and how you think it could lead to improvements and solutions to the lionfish problem.
This just made such a beautiful picture diagram of what exactly they should do. And, you know, we had this translated into 8 or 9 different languages around the Mediterranean and dispersed them to all our colleagues. So colleagues in Africa and the Eastern Mediterranean and, you know, and wherever lionfish invasion is coming next, like France and Italy also have this now in their handbook of tools. So they have, you know, something speedy they can look at and learn from.
So I think science has a lot to gain here, as does management. And the East meets West concept, you know, is just getting started. As I said before, we're just now meeting people that probably will make a big difference to the rest of our careers. And what about our friend Ali ElHage.
Hilarious. Oh my God, that guy is the life of the party. He should be invited everywhere.
Ali is also the genius and entrepreneur behind Zookeeper, a container for speared lionfish. It changed the game by allowing conservation-minded divers to safely hunt lionfish without being stung by their painful, venomous spines.
Zookeeper is much more beautiful than I ever imagined. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So can you please tell me the background story behind this genius invention?
Genius.
It is.
It's actually a pretty cool story. I was down in Curacao where I was raised,
Okay.
and a buddy of mine and I used to have coffee every morning. And one morning he said, you know, you need to design something to protect scuba divers from the spines of a lionfish. And of course my first question was like, well, what's a lionfish?
No way.
So he educated me on the lionfish thing and how they were shooting them and putting them in these lobster bags and twirling the bags around and really fast pulling the spear out. I went to the Home Depot version on the island, walked the aisles, and bought a bunch of stuff, took it back to my office and started the whole design process. And eventually I came out with something that looked like these, but didn't quite work like these. And my nephew and 3 of his friends were, you know, they put together this group called the Lionfish Exterminator Team, or Lionfish, you know, something team. LET Curacao is the name. And I would take the Zookeeper and they would go out and hunt and come back
So
and
cool.
give me feedback and everything, and
Okay.
I'd go and change it out.
Your testers.
Yep, they were my testers. They were before the Zookeeper. They would dive with a bird cage.
A bird cage.
Yeah, paper, rock, and scissors. I think it is, to see who is the one that's going to carry the bird cage underwater. But eventually they came back and to say, you know, this thing works, and they went from catching 2-3 lionfish between the 4 of them to 15-20 lionfish each.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they really got to ramp up their catches.
Exactly. You know, the whole Caribbean, and there's this group that Jim calls the Lionfish Universe.
And we're growing. We're
And
expanding like the universe.
and we're growing. It's you know, everybody has a little something to share about lionfish, and when you put it all together, you know, you have something to work with.
Absolutely love the group. And then biologically speaking, I have all these new questions to answer. So it's super fun as a scientist knowing exactly from you guys what I need to study, and then we can try to answer those questions. But we're not going to lose time studying anything that doesn't need to be studied. So again, expedited how we're going to advance our research and prioritize things, and then the marketing as well. You guys have taught us exactly what we could do, different options. So we have like a really super easy recipe book on
Nice.
on next steps of what to do. So yeah, you guys have been super helpful. You're always there. You guys answer my questions immediately. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a beautiful thing.
that's the great
Thank you
thing.
so much, and thank you for these so much.
You're very welcome.
Absolutely love them. They're gonna get well used.
Good. Fill them up.
Fill them up.
Yep. Fill them
Yay.
up.
High five. Giddy up.
Giddy up.
And then I was forced to ask Aylin about myself.
Dr. Gittings should make documentaries because he has the calmest voice. He's always so cool. He's always so smart. He has amazing stories.
In the Mediterranean, do you think a trap fishery is something worth considering?
I think a trap fishery is an incredible idea right now because scuba divers aren't allowed to spear lionfish. Skin divers are allowed to spear lionfish. However, they're not allowed to sell any of the catches commercially.
The basic lionfish trap that we've designed, that we've ended up designing after a number of different prototypes of different designs, involves a very simple bent rebar frame, soft netting that's very loosely attached to the rebar frame, and an axle that goes across the middle with a piece of plastic lattice attached to it. Very simple. When these things are dropped off the boat and head to the bottom, when it hits the bottom, these go down about 3 feet per second at the weight that we have the traps now.
Okay.
You could put more weight on if you wanted, but
Sure.
when they hit the bottom, the deflectors cause the jaws to separate and spread apart. So it hits at about this speed and the thing springs open. And laying in a giant circle, 6 feet across, on the bottom, with this loose netting around the entire base of the trap. And then the deflectors that caused it to open just sit there.
Yeah.
And then there's a plastic piece of lattice in the middle. And you could use anything for this, but we found that garden lattice is really useful because it's buoyant. It floats on its own.
Oh, okay. That helps.
But it's also got structure to it that lionfish, for whatever reason, they're attracted to it. But like I said, lionfish are attracted to just about anything.
What is the bycatch like with these traps? Have you done several experiments testing?
We have done those, and while you do get a few species now and then, they're mostly small fish that are not commercially important at all. Other species don't hang around with lionfish very often. If they do, they end up in their stomachs.
Okay, so these traps are brilliant, and I see you've put a lot of time and effort into them. But what I think we need to figure out before we can test or deploy these in the Mediterranean is how many fish fishers will catch, and if they will catch enough to be able to have interest in them. Because right now, lionfish prices are not very high. I think we have to work on the demand a little bit. But what can you tell me about the catch per unit effort of these?
They've been tested in waters down to about 150 feet or so.
Okay.
But now is the time to get past 150 feet to beyond diver depths.
Yeah.
And in waters that we really don't even know how many lionfish are down there, other than we think there are a lot. So the economic viability of this and the fishability of the traps are the exact same things we have to work on here and figure out before we can determine whether the commercial fishermen are going to adopt these and capitalize their businesses
Sure.
in a way that they're going to be able to catch and sell lionfish. So we've got all the same issues you have in the Mediterranean: catchability, economics,
Yeah.
the sale of marketability. How much are people willing to pay for lionfish? Are they willing to pay more than they are for other species because it helps the environment, because it's an environmentally friendly way to eat fish?
Well, I'm waiting for this to be a fad against fishermen.
Finally, she describes Scott Gonnello.
He's also hilarious. Yeah, Scott, I can't believe how sweet that guy is. He's just always volunteering his time, and he's just like always happy and such a great friend, and yeah.
Scott Gonnello left a successful career as a corporate consultant and author to follow his ocean passion. A skilled programmer, he developed Lionfish Patrol so divers could record lionfish catches, help others find hunting hotspots, and track the invasion.
The app is great for divers, and it's great for them to keep track of all their catches. And in doing that, we get some valuable data on bottom time, depth, how many they caught, was it natural environment, those types of things, so that we can do a heat map of where it's being, hit the most for large removal of lionfish.
Can derbies use it?
Oh, absolutely.
This is what I'm interested in.
Oh,
Okay.
that's where you're going with this,
Yep,
isn't it?
yep.
Okay, no, that's actually really good. And that's an important part that we added to the app, was to encourage more people to have more derbies, even if they're just small, fun ones for the weekends. And what we've done in the app is we've created this whole system where you can create your own derby, put the prize money, the rules, the dates, the start and the finish, and then you can collect the data as the divers are going out and posting their catch totals. And it can do the smallest catch, the largest catch, and then how many. And what's nice is it goes into their feed as their own dive log for lionfish, but you get a feed from that as well with the leaderboard. So you can see who's leading for the most catch, who's leading for the smallest catch, and who's leading for the largest catch.
Amazing. So you've talked a lot about this app, but you haven't told us yet where to find this app or what it's called even. Come on, I thought you were a little better in the marketing.
Yeah, okay. So it's called Lionfish Patrol. See, I don't say anything because I'm always wearing it, so.
Okay, give you that.
It's called Lionfish Patrol, and it's a free app, and anybody in the world can use it. Especially divers, and you can get it at the App Store. Well, first of all, I know you have to leave, and we've been communicating via video screens and whatnot. So it's really good to finally see you in person again. So that's
You
great.
as well. Really nice to meet you.
And I got some departing gifts for you. Some parting gifts. So here's one of our nonprofit hats.
That's beautiful. Lionfish Central.
Made just for you.
Thank you. Just let me try it on.
Ooh.
How does it look?
Very good. Very
Yeah.
good. This is our Lionfish Central nonprofit T-shirt.
Nice. Beautiful.
Long sleeve. And of course, the most important one of all for marketing, Lionfish Patrol T-shirt.
Wow, can we wear the same thing tonight when we go out for dinner?
Sure, we'll be twinsies.
Yay, twinsies. So nice to meet you, Scott.
So nice to meet you too. And come on back soon again.
I will, definitely. And I'm waiting for you to come help us in Turkey.
Well, just make the call. We'll get out there.
Such a great meeting.
Such a great meeting. Good seeing you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you too. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. I think one thing I would like to say that's quite important is the difference between Mediterranean and American colleagues. In America, everybody is so selfless and so giving and wants to teach each other and help each other. And we don't have that culture in the Mediterranean, I think because it's more competitive. And that's what I would like to teach people over there, that it's okay to help each other, and that's how you grow, and that's how you lift each other up. And with all these friendships, I mean, the Turkish team has seen this, and it has inspired a lot of people. But I think together, when we do bring your group over there, we can eventually help lift them up and maybe get them out of that mode of thinking, because it's so much better this way when you work together. I mean, it just doesn't make sense the other way.
On this day, the foursome is heading to a coral reef in the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary, so Aylin can learn to spear and handle lionfish safely. They ready their equipment, including Ali's invention, the Zookeeper, a container that protects divers from the lionfish's venomous spines. With spears, gloves, and zookeepers in hand, they take the plunge for their first lesson. The mission? Help Aylin bag her first lionfish. Holden is the first to spot the beautiful invader, tucked beneath a mass of corals and sponges. A typical resting behavior. Alex and Holden get Aylin ready. She starts with a 4-tipped spear. The lionfish is still unafraid of the approaching divers. Some quick reminders on how to use the spear. And she moves in for the kill. A miss. The fish barely moves. A second miss. The third time, contact, but not enough speed to penetrate the fish. It heads for shelter and becomes elusive. Lesson 1, don't miss. It's not good for the spear or the reef, and it teaches the lionfish a valuable lesson. Be afraid. They spot a pair of lionfish, and Aylin changes to a longer tri-tip spear, but still doesn't get enough force on it to be anything but a nuisance to the fish, and sends both of them into hiding. Back to the shorter spear. This time she cocks it with a long draw on the rubber band. She lands her shot. Elated, she transfers her catch to the safety of the zookeeper and celebrates with her teacher.
Neutral.
Well, I had a really good teacher.
We had fantastic eyes. Holden was the
did.
one who found it.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Golden.
Just swim around. So you found it?
Look at the company I'm in. I got Golden and Lionfish King.
Cool.
Golden to the right, Lionfish King to the left. What more do I want? Life is good. So he showed me the strategy. I think before I wasn't putting the sling down enough, so it would just shoot a little bit. But he's
Needed more
patient,
power.
and he showed me again and again until I got it.
Patient, that's my
Nice.
name.
So what are we gonna do for dinner? Ceviche?
Oh no, look at how good we are.
The ride to shore is always a time for reflection. The fact that lionfish populations have to be controlled with hunting puts conservationists in a paradoxical position, killing beautiful animals that are a problem through no fault of their own for the sake of others. But until nature comes up with her own solution, perhaps in the form of predators, diseases, or parasites that slow down the rate of population growth, humans need to play the role of lionfish predators so we can protect native ecosystems. It's another valuable lesson learned in the Western Atlantic that Aylin can take back to the nations of the Mediterranean Sea.
I wish I could take everybody scuba diving and introduce them to the magic underneath the water, because it is magic and it does need our love and deserves to be helped. I mean, we depend on it for our air that we breathe. We depend on it for utterly everything. And I think most people do not understand our connection to the ocean. Even if they're not near the ocean, we are still utterly connected to it. And it's going through a crisis right now. And if we don't do something, the human race is actually in trouble. We need to get together. We need to come together, stronger, faster, and do whatever it takes.